Today, Freedom Central is talking to Russell Blattberg, a dear friend and sponsor of Freedom Central, who's been a supporter of ours and has shared much information with us over the past. Russell, thank you very much for speaking to us today, and great to have you speak to us again. We've had you previously on our radio show, but of course we never got that interview up because it got lost. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us again.
Yeah, no problem, Mel. It's my pleasure.
So you're in Uruguay now. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, basically, since we last spoke, I'm an American. I left America because, well, I just don't think it's a very good place to be. People like me are not really very welcome there. You know, even my own family just generally thinks I'm crazy, and they kind of see me as like almost a threat. You know, I'm very much persecuted for telling the truth, and I've been labeled as, you know, a psychotic and whatever. But really, I'm just trying to warn people about, you know, what's going on and stuff like that. And so basically, I decided it was best to leave the country. My girlfriend and I moved to Uruguay, where they're legalizing cannabis, and what we're basically doing is we're starting a farm, and once they legalize, we're going to be growing cannabis and food, and just becoming self-sustainable and outside of the system as much as possible. And we're working with some close friends, and we're fairly open-minded as to who we work with, obviously, as long as they're, you know, serious and bring some real skills or finances to the table, and, you know, as long as we can trust them and we all have a similar vision in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're now going to be totally self-sustainable down there. What ultimately has brought you to this point? Is there something coming, or where are we headed?
Well, basically, yes. Essentially, if you look at what's gone on in the financial world, now the stock market is making new highs, and actually the dollar is the strongest it's been since around 2007. Gold and silver, for example, silver prices are back down at the level that they were in 2007, which, and again, consider 2007, that was right before the major crash. And essentially, I'm predicting that, you know, of course, it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen, but, well, certainly, you know, for example, Bank of America, which, you know, of course, is owned by the Rothschilds, they issued a warning the other day, which basically I was pretty almost shocked that they did it. They basically were telling people that the U.S. Treasury bonds, which currently you get about 2% for giving your money to the U.S. government for 10 years per year, they basically said that it was one of the worst investments, and that there was a high risk of the U.S. Treasury bond crashing. Which, I mean, frankly, why would you want to loan your money to the U.S. government when they're insolvent?
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. So now, theoretically, what is going to happen?
Well, right now, what's going on is that there is literally no way out for governments, in the sense that they have to continue to print more money in order to finance their debt. So what we're seeing now is that we're in a system of forced debt creation, where the Federal Reserve started what they called quantitative easing, which is really, it's just money printing, because they have to support their banks, because literally these companies are all insolvent, and if they don't continue to pump money into them, they'll crash. And you have a derivatives market, which is essentially $600 trillion. Now, there isn't $600 trillion in all of the world economy. It just doesn't even exist. So essentially, in order to fuel the world economy, they just have to keep printing more and more money. Japan printed $3 trillion worth of yen in order to fuel their economy. I think their debt to GDP, it's ridiculous. It's like the whole world is in debt, and essentially there's no way out. The only solution is just to keep printing more money and kind of kicking the can down the road. Now, the U.S. has basically set interest rates at 0%, which means if you keep your money in a bank, I mean, for example, I have a Bank of America account. I don't actually, I have about $30 in it or something, but I lose money by keeping money in there. They charge me $9 a month to keep money in there, and the interest it's 0%. So essentially, you have real negative interest rates, which means because of inflation, you're actually losing money by putting your money in a bank or just keeping it in cash. And essentially, the government, since 1992, they changed the way that they calculate CPI, which is core price index, because they like to say that, inflation is under 2%. Well, that's not true at all, because what they did is they took out food and energy from the way they calculated it. And they also do all this other crazy stuff where they basically, for example, let's say the price of beef goes up. Well, they're just going to assume that you're going to buy, a lesser beef product or something like that, so that basically they've manipulated the way in which they calculate inflation. And they do the same with unemployment, because the way that they calculate the unemployment statistics is essentially it's only if you are receiving unemployment benefits. And of course, this doesn't include people who are underemployed. It doesn't include, college students graduating who can't find a job, which is the case now. It also doesn't include people who are working part-time. I mean, you have so many people that what they're doing is they're slashing people's hours. There are no full-time jobs anymore. You can't really make a living by working anymore, because they're just not offering the jobs. But yet, they say, with all the new jobs reports or whatever, they say, the number of unemployed is going down. Well, no, it's not that the number of unemployed is going down. In fact, the number of unemployed people is higher than in the Great Depression. In the Great Depression, it peaked at around 22%, and actually the real unemployment is higher than that now. If you look at it's a website which I recommend to people. It's called shadowstats.com. It's by this guy John Williams. What he does is he calculates the real statistics, not using the phony baloney methods of the government, and you can see the real stats. Also, another website which I recommend to people is a site called usdebtclock.org, where it's actually a pretty funny site to look at, because it has all these figures, and it's just it's like a clock. It's constantly running with all these different figures, and you can actually see the U.S. debt in real time. And the U.S. debt is essentially what they have listed on the books. And of course, another thing that I recommend people check out, there's a video on YouTube. It's called $9 trillion Missing from the Federal Reserve. And essentially, this guy is questioning the Inspector General of the Federal Reserve, where $9 trillion that just happened. I mean, trillions. We're not talking about millions. We're talking about trillions. It just happened to go missing. And the person who is responsible for this money and auditing and holding the Federal Reserve accountable just can't say what's happened to it. And they're not looking into it, because of course they have to willfully look the other way, because what they did is they pushed it into black ops programs, and they've secretly bailed out all these banks.
Yes. Interestingly. So what do we do now?
Well, essentially, it's important to understand that paper is worth the paper it's printed on. And, the whole world has been bought and sold a long time ago. And essentially, what we're doing now is kind of spiraling down the drain, as George Carlin likes to talk about, the entropy of the system. And, on paper, what they're saying is that there's a recovery and that things are turning around. And of course, if they're telling you all this stuff, they're full of shit. And that's exactly the case. So, we saw what happened in Cyprus, where they just literally, they're not even just bailing out the banks anymore. They're literally stealing the depositors' funds. So if you have your money in a bank, pull it out. It's not safe. It's it's safer under your mattress. But what's really important to understand is that paper is worth the paper it's printed on. If you have your money in the stock market, what do you have? It's money in an account. It's money on a screen. You have a piece of paper that says that you own something, but at the end of the day, what do you really own?
Yeah, and will it always be worth that value?
Exactly.
Okay, so what are you advising to people to do who have assets, investments, etc.? Where should they go? What should they do now, Russell? Obviously, there's a panic going on, no doubt, when people are starting to realize the banks are stealing money in the most obvious form. It's not even hidden anymore.
No, you're right, and really, it's for anyone who cares to see. All the information is out there. Everything that I'm saying, this isn't speculation. It's all fact. That being said, well, what I'm doing with my own money is I keep the majority of my savings in physical silver, and keep in mind I don't keep that silver in a bank. That I just keep it at my house, or keep it somewhere safe. And essentially, what I'm doing with my disposable income, I have a small amount of money in cash. What I've been doing is like I said, I'm planning on starting a farm, and essentially, because I think that we're in a period now where I think we're going to see major inflation, especially in food prices, in oil prices, things like that. So, I went the other day with my girlfriend, and we bought a lot of things that we were going to need going forward, because it's important to understand that your paper is going to be worth less. It's worthless, and it's just a matter of time. So, we bought a bunch of rice, we bought a bunch of toilet paper towels, olive oil, everything that we're essentially, if you know that you're going to need something in the future, it's best to buy it now while it's available and while it's at the price that it's at, because as they print more and more money, and of course it's important to understand that every currency in the world is hedged against the dollar, and if the dollar devalues, all the currencies devalue, and trust me, the dollar is going to devalue. The dollar is at its highest point since 2007, and it's just not going to last.
Yeah. So when do you think the crash is imminent?
Well, that's the tricky thing, and it may not happen overnight. This is something which is likely to happen over a period of years, not days. But that being said, who really knows? So I'm hope for the best, prepare for the worst is kind of the right mentality here. I don't want to go on record and say, oh, it's going to happen on this day or something like that. But essentially, what I can tell you is that gold and silver prices have bottomed. Essentially, what happened recently is the cartel, in order to essentially discredit investors from buying gold and silver, they smashed it down in 2 days. They pushed silver down over 20% and gold something like 15%, which is unheard of. That hasn't happened for over 40 years since the Hunt brothers. And literally, what happened is that it triggered a huge wave of physical buying, and so what you have is a massive disconnect between the paper market price, which of course is manipulated by these major bullion banks, Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan, through the COMEX exchange, which has next to no physical gold and physical silver. They can't deliver on their contracts, and for every ounce of for every 1,000 ounces of silver traded on the COMEX, they only have one physical ounce. So literally, if any number of people go to withdraw, and what they're doing is they're actually telling people that they can't give them the physical metal. They're forcing people to settle the contracts in cash. And so what you have is the price of the physical is not reflective of the paper price anymore. You know, for example, the current silver price is about $22.50, and what you have is over a $6 premium on silver eagles, like American silver eagle coins, and it's been even higher. A lot of the stores to buy bullion, they're sold out, or there's a huge wait. You have to wait something like 4 weeks to get delivery on major orders. And of course, what's happening right now is the real power structure and the money and the gold and the silver is shifting from west to east. You know, Americans are broke right now, and Americans are struggling. Everyone I know is broke, you know, except the people who have money, and they all have their money in the banks and in the stock markets. And, you know, I try to tell these people, like my family, I mean, I basically, you know, I don't know if you knew this about me, but I come from a family which is basically Illuminati. I'm related to Jonas Salk, who created the polio vaccine. We know all about that. A big part of where my family got its wealth is essentially one of my relatives sold Walt Disney the land for Disneyland. I have an uncle who is a hedge fund manager, and he manages a lot of money. I mean, they're probably never going to hear this interview, but they probably wouldn't really like me to say this, but it's the absolute truth. And, you know, he manages millions and millions of dollars, and he works with people like John Paulson and these guys who are, you know, elbow to elbow with the elite.
Yeah. Wow. Sure. So you've actually you've seen the dark side of it, and you've seen it firsthand through your own family and experience, and it's very similar to myself in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's part of the reason I'm not really accepted by my family. They just want me to shut up.
Me too. I get you, Russell. I'm the same. And I can tell that you're a sort of a well-educated kid from a wealthy family, because you come across that way. But the problem is that when you become too smart and you start to realize that the garbage they've fed you actually is garbage and you can't stomach it anymore, you know, then they start to ostracize you and demonize you, because actually what you're telling them will shatter their reality.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, I was talking to you when I was in the Philippines, and literally I didn't have $500. You know, my girlfriend and we didn't have a refrigerator. We were keeping our food in a box, you know, and I was very sick. I had cancer, and I've been dealing with that. And my mom, you know, she accused me of trying to manipulate her into giving me money. But I'm just trying to survive on this planet just like anybody else, you know? Wow.
Yeah, I'm the same. I tell you, I very rarely speak to my family, because I don't, when I listen to them talk about, how they had to, you know, sell this house of theirs and get rid of all their lounge suites in this house, and there's such a big drama, you know, and I think to myself, oh my God, you know, how pathetic. It is so mundane, and that's the biggest deal in your life, and I feel so sorry for you. You know, you live in South Africa, for goodness sakes. Don't you know what's going on around you? And it's this whole ignorant, bubble-like attitude of, you know what, we're not going to look at the shit because it doesn't affect us. We're only going to deal with our drama and make our drama so huge that we don't have time for anything else. Because, you know, it's that whole thing, that whole paradigm, in the box mentality that I think people like you and me, thank God, we're I think starseed, or whatever you call it, more evolved souls. We've come to realize through wisdom, even at such a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and of course, what tends to happen, and part of the programming, is that they'll attack you, and you become the source of focus. You know,
yes, of course,
in a very negative way.
Yeah, of course, and of course, you then become a scapegoat for all the blame as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Okay, so moving on a bit, Russell, talk to us a little bit about solutions. You've obviously avid researcher, highly intelligent. You've put across some really great posts to me in the past. Take me through some of the stuff you've been looking at.
Well, what I'm doing essentially is, because we know that the dollar is it's a walking dead currency. You know, the Federal Reserve, they have to print essentially 85 billion dollars per month. And the thing is, we were talking about the U.S. Treasury bonds. Now, the Federal Reserve has actually now, it used to be that China was the biggest owner of U.S. debt, but they're not buying it anymore. All these other countries like China are they're making bilateral trade agreements, and they're not using the dollar anymore in trading amongst themselves. The only reason that they even continue to use the dollar at all is because they need to use it if they want to deal with the U.S. And, you know, they're kind of forced to use it to buy oil and things like that. But now that they're all making deals amongst themselves so that they don't have to use the dollar anymore. And it used to be that, like I said, China was the biggest owner of U.S. debt, but now the Federal Reserve has actually surpassed them. For example, at the Treasury bond auctions, which every month they have auctions where they our government, it needs to be financed every month. So no one wants to buy the government debt anymore. No one wants to finance the U.S. government. So what has to happen is the Federal Reserve buys over 75% of the newly issued U.S. Treasury bonds, and at some point it's going to go to 100%. And so literally, you know, understand what that means. No one wants to finance America anymore. And so you can take that to the bank quite literally. You know, what I'm doing is I'm in the Forex market. I'm, you know, like I said, I own physical silver. But of course, that's not really, you know, people think that it goes up and it goes down. No, the currencies go up and they go down. It's not that, you know, the price of gold hasn't changed. You know, it's that the currencies have become less valuable because they print more and more of it. And it's literally not worth, you know, the paper it's printed on. And so like I said, I keep my savings in silver. But in terms of making money, what I'm doing right now is I'm betting on the Australian dollar against the US dollar. Now, last time we talked, I had a position, but actually, because of all this stuff and leaving the country, I closed my position, and it was a good thing that I did, because they totally smashed the markets. Like I said, they dropped silver by something like 20% in 2 days, which, you know, if you understand what's going on with the physical demand, that's just not it's just not possible. Because, well, it's not that it's not possible, it's just that it couldn't happen without errant manipulation. This was totally an inside job, just like, you know, 9/11. They tried to say, oh, it was these terrorists, but it's an inside job. And of course, what do they do with 9/11 is they bet against the airlines through the stock market. So you have to understand that everything, it's all financial terrorism, you know, and it's just to discredit sound investments and get people into the phony baloney investments, keep buying the dollar. And so, like I said, the dollar has the longest net long position that it's had since 2007. And, you know, and of course, when everybody's long, you want to be running the other way, because if the sheeple are doing something, you can be sure that it's wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very much so. Okay, again, so self-sustaining environments and living, is that what you're saying? People start getting themselves sorted out.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, the thing is that, you know, if you know your money is going to be worth less and less, and eventually what's going to happen is the whole monetary system is going to implode because of a derivatives crisis. Like I said, there's $600 trillion in derivatives out there. That represents 30 times the real world economy, you know. And because of the nature of it, you know, a derivative, it's a bet on a bet on a bet on a bet. It's not real. And everything is so highly leveraged in the system. Like, for example, Bear Stearns, it was leveraged like 33-1. So a 3% drop in its capital busted the whole bank, you know, and it just shows you how fragile the system is. And of course, it's all being managed. But if you look, there's a new crisis every single day. You know, it's not like people talk about these black swan events, like it's like what happens once in a blue moon. It's every day. It's which country is going to be next? They're all broke.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all broke, and we're still playing a fraudulent system.
It's a shell game, and they're trying to keep people distracted and say, oh, this country is the worst, or this country is the worst, but it's the Federal Reserve System, and they're, the U.S. dollar represents the world's reserve currency, and of course it's not worth the paper it's printed on. And so, basically what I'm telling people, what I'm doing is trying to get off the grid, get out of the system as much as possible, because when it all goes to shit and collapses, what are you going to do? We're all reliant, to some extent, on going to the grocery store and buying food. You don't want to be reliant on these corporations, on these companies, because it's just a key to enslavement.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Now, Russell, you're talking about people here who potentially have investments. Now, to be honest with you, the majority of the planet, people like myself, we have nothing. Okay, there's no investments, there's no money tied up. What do we do?
Well, I mean, essentially, on some level, and this is not to, I'm not trying to disappoint people, but it's tough, I mean, I literally had to, beg my mom for money because I had nothing, and, she's a multimillionaire, and, she gave me a little, but, I don't expect to get any more money. And so we all have to do the best we can and work with what we have, and really, what I said in our last interview and what I recommend to people is to pool resources. We all have to work together in this because there's no other way, and of course the whole system of capitalism, which we know is really just fascism, it kind of encourages competition and encourages, dog against dog. But the thing is, that doesn't work, and what we really has to work is teamwork and unity in this. And Mel, like I said, you're welcome. You and Rich are welcome to be part of what I'm doing with my farm, and even if you don't have money or whatever, if you can get down here, well, look, we're going to be growing our own food. We're going to be growing our own weed. The plan is to, pay off as much of the rent as possible, pay for like a year in advance, something like that. And then once we do that, we'll have the land. We'll be growing our own food. We'll be growing our own weed. We'll be out of the system, Do you know what? I am dying to come and learn. I'm absolutely so keen to get my botany skills on and learn how to grow primo weed. Really, I'm so keen to get into that. So I definitely take you up on that, Russell. When you get your little farm going, we'll come give you a little visit and check it out. Definitely, they talk about the new world order. Hey, I say let's make the new weed order, And
I love it.
I mean, basically, you have to consider what is real, what has real value. There's no jobs. You're not going to be able to get employed. So you have to think about what can you actually do for yourself? What has real value? What do people want? And you talk about medicine. For example, it's not healthcare, it's sick care. You look at the treatments for cancer, they're giving these people ice cream and chemotherapy. Okay, that's not how you treat cancer. The way you treat cancer is you need organic fruits and vegetables. Yes. You need to alkalize the body. You need to boost the immune system. And of course, we know all about Rick Simpson and what he calls hemp oil. Really, it's cannabis oil. And the thing is, I mean, it's not, people think that you need, if you get cancer, it's a death sentence. It's not a death sentence at all. And of course, these days, about 50% of the people in the world are getting cancer. I got cancer. I've been dealing with cancer. Yeah. But it's not a death sentence, okay? It's just that you have to strengthen your immune system, and you have to, essentially a vegetarian or vegan diet, or, eating very little meat in general, especially red meat. There's a lot of natural things that you can do, taking, certain vitamins and things like that. And, one of the best things that you can do is Phoenix tears, which is essentially, cannabis oil, extracting the essential oil from cannabis. And, you can make your own medicine. It's just that they don't want people making their own medicine. They want people sick, not well. They don't want people to be able to cure themselves, because that means independence, and then you're not reliant on the system.
Yeah. Sure. Do you know, it's funny, I became aware of the concept of healing yourself at a very young age. I had a car accident when I was 18, I think it was 1994. And my legs are still very, very scarred, but I was literally mangled, crushed, and in a wheelchair for a year. And they gave me the worst prognosis possible. And I met this woman who taught Reiki, and she taught me how to do it. And I learned to walk again. And now I don't even have that much of a limp. I mean, my one leg is still 1.5 inches shorter than the other. And when I wear high heels, it's a little pronounced. But apart from that, you'd never notice it. And it's just healed so well through my own intent and my own ways of seeking. I remember I had a pin through my leg. My mom was petrified I was bending the pin because I was walking without crutches. She would go mental at me because I didn't have my crutch. And I've always known that mainstream medicine teaches you to be disabled in your own ability to heal.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, our mainstream medicine, it came out of Nazi Germany, okay?
Yeah.
That's the truth. That's the absolute truth. I mean, fluoride,
Yeah.
all of it. And exactly what you're saying. Everyone is so brainwashed and so programmed, that you try to treat yourself, and they get all scared. I think David Icke, say what you will about him, but he's pretty funny in a lot of his descriptions. Oh, don't do that,
Yeah.
And it's like, it's exactly how it is. And everyone is part of the control system. It's your family, it's your friends.
Well, they do. They actually, for example, in some countries where you have health insurance, they will stop the health insurance if you go onto natural therapies. They actually will not treat you anymore, or they will, remove their coverage of you because you become a health risk. You take your health into your own hands.
A health risk, exactly. Yeah, because you're not paying into the whole pharmaceutical Ponzi scheme anymore, and you're not.
Exactly.
I mean, literally, look, I can, again, talking from my own personal experience. Yeah. My father was a doctor, and he ended up killing himself. Because he just got so depressed. He was on all these meds, and he was abusing what he was prescribing to his patients. And he also smoked cannabis, and my mom had a real problem with that. And there was a lot of reasons, but
it's interesting that you say that. Your father actually killed himself.
Yeah.
Committed suicide.
Yeah, when I was 12.
Oh my goodness. It's interesting you say that, because doctors and psychologists are amongst the highest abusers of drugs and the highest suicide rate in terms of, if you want to categorize it by occupation. I'm sorry to hear that your father's one of those. I really am. It's terrible. I'm sorry, Russell.
Yeah, it's okay. My mom is a psychologist, actually, so there you go.
Wow. So she obviously didn't do a good job with him. Wow,
No.
But that just goes to show you, so many people want to get into, they have this natural inclination to be healers, and then they get sucked into mainstream medicine and get so brainwashed into all of this nonsense. I really believe that there are so many doctors out there who have a genuine inclination to want to heal people. It really is. And sort of this, pharmaca is the only way they find to do it.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, look, it's like you're either with us or against us is the nature of the system. If you're not with us, you're with the terrorists, what George Bush said. And literally, what they're doing in America now is they're attacking anyone who is working outside of the system. If you're a dairy farmer and you're creating raw milk, you're a terrorist now. If you're collecting rainwater, you're a terrorist. If you're growing your own food, you're a terrorist.
Yep. Yeah, and it's one of the reasons I can't go to America. I being South African, I have a South African passport. I can't go to America. On the red list, I have to apply for a visa.
You literally can't, even if you wanted to.
No, I can't even get a visa to go there, because I've got to apply for a visa through the American embassy, and I'm on that list of potential terrorists.
Oh, that's funny, actually, but that's fine. I mean, you don't want to go to America.
No. I'll come visit you in Ecuador.
Nazi Germany.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, Russell, is there anything else you want to contribute before we finish off this interview?
Well, I just wrote an article, or well, I didn't actually write all of it, but I put it together called, what is it called? Oh, Economic Collapse, The Story of Your Enslavement. And I posted that on your wall.
Yes.
And I don't know, I mean, everybody is looking for answers right now, and I'm doing the best that I can for myself and me and my girlfriend, and I'm creating something which is going to be sustainable when the whole system collapses. And what I recommend to people is do what you can to get out of the major cities. Do your best to be sustainable. Start preparing now. Buy seeds. I mean, look at fucking Monsanto. We have the whole thing with the march against Monsanto. Monsanto controls a third of the world's seeds, and they're trying to buy up more and more and more. And it's harder and harder to get non-GMO foods and stuff like that. We know GMO causes cancer, and so I mean, basically, I don't have all the answers, but I am proposing some solutions. A big part of that being cannabis and hemp,
Yeah.
And so I definitely recommend people, and people have this huge aversion to it. A lot of people, especially, it's so funny, because we're in a time where, people talk about the new age, but the new age is just a big form of brainwashing. You have the whole thing with the Galactic Federation, and everybody's looking to these channelers, and everybody's talking about ascension. But this is a time more than ever to have your feet on the ground. You gotta have you gotta have your head here in what's going on here. And
Yeah.
I mean, basically, look, you can be talking about all this stuff, but you have to eat food. Okay, you have to have like water. I mean, we're not going to be able to survive going forward if you're reliant. I mean, so basically, this is a time to really figure out who you can trust, who you can work with. Start coming together with your friends. That's really the best that I can do for you. Start getting seeds, growing your own food, get out of the system. Because the thing is, people, there are no jobs anymore. What are you going to do for money? What are you going to do for food? Like, you don't want to be reliant on the state. You don't want to be in debt. You don't want to be entrenched in the system. So the best thing that you can do is start getting out of it now before it all totally collapses.
Russell, can I ask you something? What is
Yes.
the climate like there in terms of, could you grow coconuts in Ecuador?
Well, I'm in Uruguay, actually.
I beg your pardon, Uruguay.
Yeah, the climate, it's like rainforest temperate, I think is what it's technically called. The growing season is about 6 months out of the year, and I mean, it's actually going into the winter time here, but I mean, you could still probably grow some stuff, and I mean, you can also grow a lot of things indoors these days because, with the hydroponic system and everything, it's, the technology is such that, you can do a lot. Coconuts, I'm not sure. That might be more in terms of like Brazil and stuff, but you can definitely grow a lot of stuff here.
Okay. All right. Now, my little dream always was to be able to grow hemp and coconuts. Because next to hemp, coconuts is the second most medicinal plant on the planet. The coconut water alkalizes your body instantly. I mean, I'm talking about instant cancer cure. Near enough mainlining, it's the best way to cure cancer.
Yeah, coconuts are amazing, and I mean, we're going to be growing cannabis and hemp, and so
it just makes sense to do
the
together.
best that they can, but I like South America because it's less regulated. It's you can grow here. It's cheaper to live, and you know what? Frankly, the whole system isn't built up like in the same way. They don't fluoridate the water. There are no chemtrails. I appreciate that because they're trying to kill everybody in America.
Aren't they just? Yeah, don't worry. You're in Europe too. Anyway, listen, Russell. Let's finish this off for today. But we'll speak again soon, and I look forward to hear how your little adventure goes on, and maybe we'll pop down there and visit you.
Yeah, definitely. And so just again, anybody can friend me on Facebook. I'm actually blocked from making friend requests myself. So just, for 30 days or whatever, because they like to do that. Fascist book, I call it. Yeah, you can just friend me. My name is Russell Blattberg, Russell Blattberg. Anybody, if you want to talk to me, can feel free to add me on Skype. My Skype ID is High on Life. SINZ88, and I definitely recommend people check out my page. It's called Plant the Seed, Invest in Tomorrow, and let's all do the best we can. And I mean, really, like, who knows what the quote the new world in the future is really going to look like? But I listened to an Arizona Wilder presentation the other night. I really like what she said. I mean, this is somebody who was horribly abused and part of all these satanic rituals. And she said, when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, be your own light. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so powerful. Beautiful. And you know what? That's exactly what I try to do every single day. So thank you for that, Russell. That's a very, very encouraging piece. Anyway, absolutely. Listen, we must talk again soon, and can't wait to come see you, and all the best with your farm.
All right, thanks. Love you, Mel.
Love you too, Russ. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.